Stop writing in your gratitude journal. Stop visualizing your dream car, and for the love of God, stop repeating affirmations in the mirror about how wealth is flowing to you effortlessly. None of that matters if your brain is biologically hardwired to keep you broke. You've been lied to by an entire industry of self-help gurus who want to sell you the illusion that financial success is a mystical vibration or a matter of simply working harder. They tell you to hustle. They tell you to grind. They tell you to manifest. But they fundamentally misunderstand human neurobiology. The uncomfortable truth is this: your bank account is an exact, measurable reflection of your current dopamine baseline. If you are struggling to build wealth, if you are constantly stuck in a cycle of making money and immediately blowing it, or if you simply cannot sit down and execute on the business plan you've been thinking about for 3 years, it is not a discipline problem. It is a neurochemical problem. Your mesolimbic reward pathway has been hijacked by a modern environment designed to farm your attention, bleed your wallet, and leave your prefrontal cortex absolutely devastated. You think you're in control of your financial decisions? You're not. Every time you open Instagram, every time you refresh your crypto portfolio, every time you order Uber Eats because you deserve a treat after a long day, you are spiking your dopamine in a way that actively destroys your ability to do the boring, high-friction work required to actually get rich. Let's break down the anatomy of a financially broken brain. Dopamine is not the molecule of reward. It is the molecule of motivation, craving, and drive. It is the currency your brain uses to decide whether an action is worth the energy expenditure. In a healthy, evolutionarily adapted brain, dopamine is released in pursuit of a difficult goal, like hunting for food or building a shelter. It gives you the energy to endure friction. But today, we live in an era of cheap, unearned dopamine. Your phone, processed foods, pornography, video games, and social media algorithms are giving you the neurochemical equivalent of winning the lottery, multiple times a day, for doing absolutely nothing. Here is the brutal reality. When you receive unearned dopamine, your baseline drops. Let me repeat that because it is the most important concept in financial biohacking. Your brain has a homeostatic mechanism. If you artificially spike your dopamine with a cheap stimulus, your brain compensates by dropping your baseline dopamine level below what it was before the spike. You experience a deficit, and in that deficit state, everything that requires actual effort, like reading a 10K report, coding a new software, analyzing a real estate deal, or simply sticking to a budget, feels physically painful. So what do? You reach for another cheap spike to feel normal again. You buy something you don't need on Amazon. You check your notifications. You are trapped in a feedback loop of impulsive consumption, driven by a chemically induced state of hyperbolic discounting. Hyperbolic discounting is a behavioral economics term for our tendency to choose a smaller, immediate reward over a larger, delayed reward. And your time preference, your ability to delay gratification, is entirely governed by your dopamine baseline. A low baseline means you want the reward now, which is the exact mindset of the consumer. A high, stable baseline means you have the tenacity to wait years for the compound interest to explode. That is the mindset of the producer. If you do not fix your dopamine pathways, you will remain a consumer for the rest of your life. You will spend your best years making other people rich because their algorithms have outsmarted your biology. Enter Dr. Andrew Huberman, the Stanford neurobiologist who has done more to democratize our understanding of the brain than almost anyone else alive. While Dr. Huberman focuses primarily on health, longevity, and focus, the exact same protocols he discusses are the ultimate cheat codes for wealth creation. We are going to take the Huberman Dopamine Protocol and weaponize it for your financial trajectory. To understand how this protocol makes you rich, we have to look at the concept of reward prediction error. This is how your brain learns the value of a financial asset or a business action. If you anticipate a reward and you get it, dopamine remains stable. If you anticipate a reward and you get more than expected, you get a massive dopamine spike. But if you anticipate a reward and get less, your dopamine crashes below baseline. This is exactly why amateur traders get slaughtered in the stock market. They experience a massive spike when a speculative bet goes up, a positive reward prediction error. Their brain chemically tags that impulsive gambling behavior as essential for survival. But when the market corrects, the crash isn't just financial. It's a profound neurochemical depression. They panic sell at the bottom because their dopamine baseline has cratered, and they physically cannot tolerate the emotional pain of holding the asset. Wealth building is inherently boring. It is the systematic, repeated execution of mundane tasks over an extended time horizon. Index fund investing is boring. Writing copy is boring. QA testing your product is boring. Therefore, the ultimate financial biohack is learning how to attach dopamine to the friction of the work, rather than the financial reward itself. Dr. Huberman talks extensively about the anterior midcingulate cortex, or the AMCC. This is a region of the brain that scientists are now identifying as the seat of human tenacity, willpower, and grit. When people do things they don't want to do, the AMCC literally grows in size. It gets thicker. When they succumb to comfort and cheap dopamine, it shrinks. The AMCC is your financial engine. Every time you force yourself to sit down and do a 90-minute block of deep work instead of scrolling TikTok, your AMCC grows. Every time you transfer $500 into your investment account instead of buying a designer jacket you don't need, your AMCC grows. But how do you sustain that effort without burning out? This is where Huberman's concept of dopamine destacking comes in. Modern culture tells us to layer our pleasures. You sit down to work on your side hustle, but you bring an energy drink. You put on your favorite hype music. You have a podcast playing in the background, and your phone is face up on the desk. You are stacking dopaminergic triggers to artificially force yourself through the work. The problem is, this spikes your dopamine so high that the crash is inevitable. The next time you sit down to work without the energy drink or the music, the work feels completely unbearable. You have conditioned your brain to require a massive neurochemical cocktail just to perform baseline tasks. To get rich, you have to invert this process. You have to strip away the cheap dopamine and train your brain to release dopamine in response to the effort itself. You have to convince your nervous system that the friction, the pain, and the boredom are the actual rewards. Once you do that, your capacity to produce value becomes infinite. You become a machine that runs on its own internal, renewable energy source, while your competition is constantly looking for the next external hit just to get out of bed. Theory is useless without execution. We are now going to construct the ultimate financial biohacking routine. This is the exact step-by-step dopamine protocol you will implement starting tomorrow morning to rewire your brain for extreme wealth accumulation. Step 1. The circadian anchor. You must view morning sunlight within 30 to 60 minutes of waking. This is not optional. It is neurobiological law. When sunlight hits the melanopsin ganglion cells in your retina, it signals the suprachiasmatic nucleus in your brain to release a healthy, natural pulse of cortisol. This wakes up your nervous system, but more importantly, it sets a biological timer. Exactly 12 to 14 hours later, your brain will release melatonin, ensuring deep, restorative sleep. If you wake up and immediately look at your phone, you are bypassing this system and initiating a cheap dopamine spike before your brain has even established its baseline. This leads to profound financial impulsivity later in the afternoon. Keep the phone on airplane mode. Go outside. Look at the sky for 10 minutes. Step 2. The caffeine delay. Stop drinking coffee the second you roll out of bed. Your brain builds up a chemical called adenosine throughout the day, which makes you sleepy. While you sleep, adenosine clears out. But when you wake up, there is still some residual adenosine in your receptors. If you immediately drink caffeine, you block those receptors, but you don't clear the adenosine. Around 2 p.m., when the caffeine wears off, all that accumulated adenosine rushes the receptors, and you experience a massive crash. What happens during a crash? Your dopamine plummets, your prefrontal cortex goes offline, and you start making terrible financial choices. You buy the expensive lunch, you skip the gym, you abandon your business tasks. Delay your caffeine intake for 90 to 120 minutes after waking to allow your body to naturally clear the adenosine. Step 3. The cold exposure baseline hack. If there is one habit that separates the financially elite from the average, it is deliberately inducing physical discomfort. Huberman's data on cold exposure is staggering. Immersing yourself in cold water, around 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius, for just 1 to 3 minutes triggers a massive release of norepinephrine and dopamine. But unlike the dopamine spike from cocaine or social media, which crashes violently, the dopamine from cold exposure rises steadily and remains elevated at 250% above baseline for up to 6 hours. Imagine having a 250% increase in your motivation, focus, and drive for the entire first half of your workday. You will literally feel invincible. You take a cold shower or plunge, and suddenly that terrifying client email or that complex financial model doesn't look so intimidating anymore. You have biologically armored your mind for high-friction tasks. Step 4. The 90-minute ultradian focus block. Human attention does not operate in 8-hour continuous shifts. We operate in ultradian rhythms, 90-minute cycles of peak cognitive alertness followed by 20-minute periods of necessary rest. When it is time to do the needle-moving work that will actually build your wealth, you must isolate yourself for 90 minutes. Here is the critical rule: 0 cheap dopamine during this block. Put your phone in another room. Close all browser tabs that are not essential to the task. No background music with lyrics. You are creating a vacuum of stimuli. In the first 15 minutes, your brain is going to fight you. It will scream for a distraction. You will feel a physical urge to check your email or look at a chart. That discomfort you feel? That is your anterior midcingulate cortex growing. That is weakness leaving your brain. Push through that 15-minute wall. Tell yourself, the friction is the goal. The difficulty is the reward. You are literally retraining your neurochemistry to release dopamine in response to the effort. After 20 minutes, you will enter a state of deep, unbreakable flow. This is where million-dollar ideas are synthesized. Step 5. Dopamine destacking the result. When you finish a massive project or close a big deal, your instinct is to go out and celebrate. You want to buy a luxury watch, go to an expensive dinner, or post about it online to get validation. Do not do this. If you celebrate the outcome with massive external rewards, you teach your brain that the end result is the only thing that matters. You ruin the effort-reward coupling you just worked so hard to build. The next time you have to start a project from scratch, your brain won't want to do the work, it will just want the watch and the steak. When you win, acknowledge it quietly. Tell yourself, I did the work, and doing the work is who I am. Keep your dopamine baseline stable. This prevents the success hangover, where entrepreneurs achieve a goal and then fall into a deep depression for 3 months because their dopamine system is completely fried. Step 6. Automating the reward prediction error. We discussed how constantly checking your portfolio triggers massive fluctuations in dopamine, leading to emotional, idiotic trading. The biohack for this is radical automation. You must remove your prefrontal cortex from your day-to-day financial operations entirely. Set up a system where a fixed percentage of your income is automatically routed into index funds, Bitcoin, or real estate syndications the exact day you get paid. Delete the apps from your phone. Check your net worth once a quarter, maximum. By making your investing invisible and boring, you stop riding the neurochemical roller coaster. You starve the gambling instinct. You force your brain to look for dopamine in your actual work, your business, your career, your skill acquisition, rather than the passive fluctuation of assets. Step 7. Non-sleep deep rest, NSDR. You cannot run an engine at redline indefinitely. High-level wealth creation requires intense sympathetic nervous system arousal, fight or flight, focus, drive. But to adapt and consolidate the neural circuits you've built, you must deliberately shift into the parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest. Most people try to relax by scrolling TikTok or watching Netflix. That is not rest. That is just passive dopamine consumption that further drains your cognitive reserves. The Huberman Protocol utilizes non-sleep deep rest, or NSDR. This involves 10 to 20 minutes of guided systemic relaxation, similar to yoga nidra. By deliberately shutting off visual stimuli and following a body scan, you guide your brainwaves from high beta down to alpha and even theta states. NSDR has been shown to rapidly restore dopamine reserves in the basal ganglia. If you hit a wall at 3 p.m., do not reach for a second cup of coffee. Lie down on the floor, put on an NSDR track for 15 minutes and watch what happens. You will wake up with a completely recharged prefrontal cortex, ready to execute high-quality financial decisions for the rest of the evening, while your competitors are sluggish, irritable, and ordering unnecessary takeout on their credit cards. I want you to really process what we just talked about. For years, you have been fighting an invisible war against your own biology. You have beaten yourself up for being lazy, for lacking discipline, for not hitting your financial milestones. You read the books, you attended the seminars, and you wondered why the secrets of the wealthy weren't working for you. It wasn't your fault, but it is your responsibility to fix it right now. The billionaires, the elite founders, the people who operate at the absolute zenith of human financial performance, they are not inherently smarter than you. They do not have access to some secret manifestation frequency. What they have, either through sheer luck, brutal conditioning, or deliberate design, is an optimized dopaminergic system. They have a massive anterior mid-cingulate cortex. They have trained their brains to crave the friction of building rather than the fleeting comfort of consuming. Wealth is not an accounting concept. Wealth is a biological byproduct. It is the external manifestation of internal neurochemical control. When you master your dopamine, you master your time preference. When you master your time preference, you master your decisions. And when you make compounding, high-quality decisions over a long enough time horizon, getting rich is no longer a probability. It is a mathematical certainty. The blueprint is in your hands. You now know exactly how the machine works. The only question left is whether you have the audacity to actually implement it, or if you're just going to click on the next video and let the algorithm feed you another hit of cheap, useless dopamine. The choice is yours. If this masterclass rewired the way you view your brain and your bank account, prove it to me. Hit the subscribe button to lock in your commitment to high-friction growth. Leave a comment down below with the exact step of the protocol you are implementing tomorrow morning. Don't just consume this information. Act on it. Dominate your biology, and I will see you in the next session.